Hello, hope your weekend's going alright. My name's Toby Lepatty Mesme, and this is Saturday the 9th of January 2021's edition of MesmePolitics, bringing you all the latest from the last 24 hours in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. Thank you for joining us. We're with you for the next half hour. There's a lot to get through. So, impeachment, that's the biggest story of the day. We'll be talking about that. We could be heading slap bang into the second impeachment of President Donald Trump, outgoing President Donald Trump. Come say hello any point during the show. Get involved in the chat. Offer your thoughts. Please subscribe with notifications on to this YouTube channel. On the way, we'll be talking about the prospects for the May 2021 elections. The elections in May. They were postponed last year. It's all built up. It's a big deal. What's going to be happening? Will they be going ahead or not? We discuss Brexit. Some issues with logistics have come in. M&S aren't happy. Percy Pig aren't happy. Eel farmers aren't happy. What does it all mean? We'll dissect it and look at it in more detail in a little bit. And the main story of the day, the thing we're going to talk about right now, is impeachment. Because impeachment appears to be what Democrats in the House and Senate are about to attempt for Trump's efforts at insurrection. What should we think about it? And will any Republicans cross the aisle? What does it all mean? Is it another partisan impeachment? Is this one going to attract more cross-party support? Will it help Trump politically or hurt him politically? What are the dynamics at play? What does Joe Biden think? All on the way for you. So yes, here is things how they are right now. Democrats laid the groundwork yesterday for impeaching President Trump a second time, as Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California threatened to bring him up on formal charges if he did not resign immediately over his role in inciting a violent mob attack on the Capitol this week. The threat was part of an all-out effort by furious Democrats, backed by a handful of Republicans, to pressure Mr. Trump to leave office in disgrace after the hours-long siege by his supporters on Wednesday on Capitol Hill. Although he has only 12 days left in the White House, they argued he was a direct danger to the nation. Ms. Pelosi and other top Democratic leaders continued to press Vice President Mike Pence and the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment to wrest power from Mr. Trump, though Mr. Pence was said to be against it. The Speaker urged Republican lawmakers to pressure the president to resign immediately, and she took the unusual step of calling General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to discuss how to limit Mr. Trump's access to the nation's nuclear codes and then publicise that communication, saying, if the president does not leave office imminently and willingly, Congress will proceed with our actions. A Republican senator from Alaska says, I want him out. He has caused enough damage now. This is after, on Friday morning, he said he would not attend President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration, the first incumbent in 150 years to skip his successor's swearing in. Hours later, Twitter permanently suspended his beloved account, which had more than 88 million followers, due to the risk of further incitement of violence. I see a lot of people cheering that on. I take issue with it. Of course, it's good he's off. You know, he's not got a platform to sow hatred and division, but I don't think handing power to unelected tech moguls is a very good way to deal with politicians we don't like, even if they are as putrid as Donald Trump. This is Sky News on the latest in the US.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It is one of the traditions of America's transition of power, the handshake between the incoming and the outgoing president. 4 years ago, Donald Trump and Barack Obama. There will be no handshake this time. And the 46th president, pretty happy with that.
One of the few things he and I have ever agreed on. It's a good thing I'm not showing up. He's been an embarrassment to the country, embarrassed us around the world. not worthy to hold that office. If we were 6 months out, we should be moving everything to get him out of office, impeaching him again, trying to invoke the 25th Amendment, whatever it took to get him out of office. But I am focused now on us taking control.
There are plenty in Washington who'd rather Trump not make it to Inauguration Day at all. Congress is ready to impeach him for a second time.
So he can have a little asterisk in history. He's always wanting to do stuff that's never been done before. There's never been a president impeached twice before. So let's impeach him. Give him what he wants.
Even after this belated concession,
my focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power.
the pressure mounts to round off a week that's defied belief.
Thank you.
How about this from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, on her conversation with the head of the military to discuss the available precautions for preventing an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or accessing the launch codes and ordering a nuclear strike. The situation of this unhinged president could not be more dangerous, she wrote. Where protesters brought chaos on Wednesday, the preparations for the inauguration have now resumed.
The question is what Donald Trump's absence from this inauguration stage says to America. Is it the action of a man who truly does now believe that Joe Biden is the legitimate next president? Or does it encourage those who've already been mobilized into action by his words?
The flag at the Capitol flies at half-mast in honor of police officer Brian Sicknick, killed in the mayhem on Wednesday. A murder inquiry has now begun.
Mr. President-elect, how are you?
America is a very different place from the one that witnessed the last changeover in the White House. Trump's time is running out, and the reality TV president will want to make sure he remains the star of this show until the very end. Greg Milam, Sky News, Washington.
Thank you to Sky News for that. Well, this is a pickle, isn't it? Just basically my message to lawmakers in the States, if they care, obviously they don't, they don't know I exist, is fight like hell to impeach President Trump, okay? I do not think it's plausible it will pass, but I think just throw aside all political considerations, get him out, fight to get him out, fight to get Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment, even though it looks like he won't, fight to get him impeached, even though it looks like it's a very steep path to getting him removed from office in that way. Impeach him, okay? Impeach him and dare Republicans in the Senate to acquit him. This is different to the first impeachment, which was basically grudges being settled by the US security establishment against the president, and Democrats playing along and inevitably strengthening Trump's political cards because people could see it was quite a party lines type impeachment. This is different. This is following attempted insurrection, however farcical and ludicrous and, you know, unserious the attempt was. This is... We're dealing with a president who is absolutely, genuinely unstable. Let's follow the only democratic way we can deal with that, which is either impeachment or invoking the 25th Amendment. Anything else is shady. Writing to generals is sketchy, because again, think of all these things being turned back on a left-wing president that people don't like, and they'll call them unstable, and they won't actually be unstable. You could see that happening. So you've got to be careful with all these things. But in terms of impeachment or invoking the 25th Amendment, let's see them try and do it. Come on, get it done. There's talk of it happening on Monday now. You know, this is... it's different. It's necessary. It's an absolute travesty that we're at this point. It's an absolute travesty that they're able to get away with it, that it looks like Trump will serve out his time in office. Don't let these Republicans get away with it. Just don't, because so many of them have completely enabled this thing from top to bottom. Don't let them. Cowards. The lot of them. Absolute cowering, pathetic cowards in the Republican Party who know what they've done, including Mitch McConnell, including Mike Pence. They know what they've done. They know what they've enabled. And they're now going to be, you know, respectable and make appearances on CNN. No. These people are as responsible for Trump's actions as Trump is. That's just how it is. Likely, the impeachment is not going to pass. Likely, Trump will stay in office, but we've got to try. And I want to see their names when they vote against it, and I want them to be held to account, because this is deadly serious. And on a side note, let's not talk about these things in terms of the Capitol storming. Let's not go, right, this means we need big security and all this. All that'll do is the state apparatus will be turned back on the left. Let's look at this as the problem wasn't going to the Capitol to protest. The problem was attempting to overthrow an election result and being neo-Nazis. That's the problem. The problem is not whether or not he should be removed from Twitter. It's that unaccountable tech moguls shouldn't be able to do this. We're the left, right? We're not dewy-eyed liberals. We've got to look at these things in a sensible way. And the sensible way tells me that labelling these people anarchists who turned up at the Capitol, domestic terrorists, or any of these things, which we all sort of initially go to, once having considered it further, I'd say both those descriptions are completely wrong. Because they will be used against the left and they're not accurate descriptions of what was going on. State-sponsored terrorism, perhaps, because the degree of collaboration between the security forces and the protesters was quite something to behold. Really quite something to behold. Disturbing, by any measure of the word. On to our next story of the day. Trouble in Brexit paradise. A growing number of retailers and courier firms are suspending or cutting back deliveries into the EU as companies grapple with new border controls as well as import taxes. On Friday, DPD, the international delivery giant, said it was pausing its road service from the UK into Europe, including the Republic of Ireland. Separately, Marks & Spencer said it was concerned about that a third of the products in its Irish food halls, including Percy Pig sweets, would now be subject to import tariffs. Such taxes could spell higher prices for shoppers. DPD said new border procedures, customs paperwork were affecting turnaround and transit times. Said it was returning 1/5 of its parcels to the sender. Cabinet Office Minister Michael Gove said there'd be significant additional disruption at UK borders as a result of Brexit customs changes in the coming weeks, saying to broadcasters, so far disruption at the border hasn't been too profound, but it is the case that the weeks ahead we expect there'll be significant additional disruption, particularly on the Dover-Calais route. It is our responsibility in government to make sure that business is as ready as possible, and hauliers and traders have already done a lot, but we have to redouble our efforts to communicate the precise paperwork that is required in order to make sure that trade can flow freely. So, under the Brexit agreement we signed, if more than 40% of the pre-finished value of a UK's firm's product was not British, it would attract tariffs. And Johnson is said to have swerved the topic of Brexit in terms of economic impact in a call with more than 200 business leaders earlier this week, with the business leaders saying it was a meaningless call, it was all mottos, we are going to build back business better, build back business greener, and a few patsy questions about how much better it would be, nothing about the realities of Brexit and COVID hitting us all hard. Here's a report from Sky News.
A week since we left the EU, Dover is quiet. But behind the scenes, there is disruption here, and more to come.
It is the case that in the weeks ahead, we expect that there will be significant additional disruption, particularly on the Dover-Calais route. It's our responsibility in government to make sure that business is as ready as possible.
There are around 40% of the lorries you'd expect to see in Dover this time of year. But DFDS shipping warned vehicles are already being delayed and refused entry. The parcel firm DPD stopped deliveries to Europe altogether. Haulage director Rob says sending his drivers to Calais is too much of a risk.
I would stop short of saying panic, but there's certainly an awful lot of people very, very concerned, and an awful lot of delays that are not being seen necessarily because they're not at the port. They're either at loading points or en route to the port, customs clearance procedures that we don't actually physically see.
And beyond Dover, in Holyhead, on the path from Great Britain to Ireland, the challenge of Brexit is being felt too.
particularly for crossing over to Northern Ireland. Some of the messaging has been that there wasn't a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, but in fact border processes are necessary to make those journeys.
And on the shop floor, there's frustration after new arrangements between Northern Ireland and Great Britain meant some goods didn't make it onto supermarket shelves.
It's a brand new way of trading, and that is having some teething problems with some people not knowing exactly what forms and exactly how to fill those in, but we're working on that too. And as well as that, we're having some people who are overbuying slightly when really there isn't the need to do that.
The trappings of Brexit were never going to be straightforward. We're not seeing the predicted chaos here yet, but this time, next week, things could be very different. Ali Fortescue, Sky News.
We've got to remember at all times, the media likes to overblow these things, because the media has an agenda, which is generally the agenda of finance capital, which is, you know, anti-Brexit from the start. However, but let's remember, first of all, a lot of this, partly the disruption, is because of COVID, because of the complications COVID has brought about to the British economy, because of the complications it's brought about in terms of trade. It's jamming up the whole system, making it trickier. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's been a massive lack, a huge lack of government logistical planning throughout this. The government didn't realise or want to think about the level of disruption a hard Brexit would have, whereas anyone who wanted to even come close to attempting such a thing should have had very detailed planning in place. They didn't. They denied all the worst case scenarios. And the reality of the situation is it's going to hurt. And one of the reasons it's going to hurt is the government doesn't have a plan. It didn't sort out the logistics. And the deal itself is full of contradictions. So the whole thing is really difficult. This was always going to be an extremely difficult transition for the British economy, for British businesses. It should precipitate a shift to a more egalitarian economy. The Tories want to make it a shift to a less egalitarian economy. They don't mind about the pain. The pain could be mitigated. They don't want to mitigate it. It was always going to be difficult, but a Tory government is making this far more difficult, far more painful than it needs to be. We have to make this work. Those were the terms of exit we left on. We are now out. The debate, the Leave Remain debate, is over. We have to fight to make this work. We have to get through the teething trouble, make it work. We have to mitigate any job loss or disruption in terms of supply chains, because, you know, this is going to be a difficult transition to an entirely new paradigm for the British economy, however we prevail in post-Brexit land. So we're going to need to muffle the pain and help out various organisations and businesses and shop fronts and people who may be adversely affected by it. That's what we have to do it. That's, you know, we've withdrawn. We have to compensate people where that withdrawal has hurt them in any way. Over to our final story of the day, but first I want to play you this. It is a critical care consultant talking to Sky News.
Now, yesterday, a major incident was declared in the capital by the Mayor of London. That's as the rapid spread of COVID-19 threatens to overwhelm its hospitals. And with data estimating that 1 in 30 Londoners now have the virus, how is the intensive care units in the hospitals around London coping? Well, Dr. Zudin Puthacheri is a council member of the Intensive Care Society. He's also a critical care consultant, and he joins me now from central London. Good morning to you, Dr. Puthacheri. Just describe for us a little bit what it's like in intensive care units in London at the moment.
So the intensive care units they're full beyond bursting at the moment. There are more patients than we've ever had. We've had less staff than we've ever had. And it's not just the intensive care units, the hospital, the wards run by our respiratory physician colleagues, our geriatricians, everywhere is full beyond bursting. If there's a space for a patient, they're there. We've cannibalized staff from all around the hospital. Volunteers are pouring in to try and look after these patients and deliver the best care we can. Staff are breaking themselves to make this happen and to keep our patients safe. And it's not going to be enough.
Well, you're making that point. It's coming over very loud and clear. And it was said in the previous wave that people who went
Very frightening. Please follow the rules. Please recognise the severity of the situation and act accordingly. We are in dire straits. We have a government asleep at the wheel. We have to take things into our own hands. Now, for our final story of the day. Elections due in May are expected to go ahead despite coronavirus, officials have said, amid warnings they are likely to be among the most logistically fraught and complicated the UK has ever witnessed. Boris Johnson told MPs this week that while the plan was still for local and mayoral elections, some of which were postponed from last year, to happen on the 6th of May in England, this remained under review. Officials stressed that while the pandemic means all government plans are theoretically subject to change, the strong expectation is that the polls will go ahead. In England, as well as a double set of council elections, there'll be ballots for the London Mayor and Assembly, for a series of other mayors, and for police and crime commissioners. Scotland and Wales are holding elections on the same day for their parliaments and for PCCs in Wales. Each UK nation organises its own elections. While Scotland's government has left open the prospect of the Holyrood elections being staged over 2 to 3 days to allow distancing and cleaning at polling stations, England is committed to its usual timetable. Election officials are warning that while turnout at English local elections tend to be low, the practicalities could mount up, not least because of the sheer number of contests taking place, with some voters receiving up to 7 polling cards. Well, with the government rejecting the idea of all postal voting, polling staff will be protected by plastic screens. Voters will socially distance and be encouraged to bring their own pens. They will show polling cards rather than handing them over. There are nevertheless worries about attracting enough volunteer election staff, many of whom tend to be older, and about finding venues with schools and community halls potentially wary about hundreds of people trampling through their buildings. So we've got to stage an election in the middle of a pandemic. This is basically our November 2020. The US had to deal with it. Now we've got to deal with it. Don't count on the elections going ahead on the date they're scheduled for. I'm hearing chatter from various government sources, through various newspapers, that it looks like it could be June. Likely going to happen this year, but it changes every day. Could easily be delayed. Unlikely to be postponed for another year. I think that would be very damaging from a democratic perspective. We already delayed one. I think we have to make this work, but I do think we should be looking more deeply at provisions of, universal mail-in suffrage and things like that, as opposed to sending, pensioners out traipsing to polling locations. But nevertheless, it looks like it'll go ahead sooner or later this year, which is good. It's a big election. This is a big election. So much stuff. We have what was going to be the 2020 elections and what was going to be the 2021 elections all together in the 2021 elections. That is a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff to vote on. A lot of big political decisions about what happens at the lower levels of government right across the United Kingdom, all across England, Scotland, Wales. It's a big deal. We need to really pay attention to this one. It will be a test match of Boris Johnson versus Keir Starmer. That's how it looks like it's shaping up at the moment, which would be very interesting, seeing the dynamics of how Johnson's Tories perform in the midst of this chaos and Starmer's Labour perform up against them. It's the first electoral outing for Starmer, and it's the first electoral outing since COVID for Johnson. I would predict very low turnout, lower than usual. I don't think people are going to be fired up to vote. Maybe I'm wrong, but the turnout will be pretty low, raising questions about just how representative the election will be. And it all depends on the vaccine rollout, what way it will swing. I think if we're still in the soup by the time this election is held, the Tories will suffer. If they have miraculously turned things around and saved us from the virus, things will be looking up Boris Johnson. I really think it's too early to predict the results. I would expect gains for Labour and losses for the Tories, but we really have to wait and see. Maybe Johnson will usher us into a golden age overnight and everyone will be really happy and everything will be glowing and we'll all have forgotten about how the government nearly killed us for a year with its ineptitude in the middle of a national pandemic. We will, of course, cover the election right here on MesmePolitics. We'll probably cover it on election night in some form or another. It'll be the first proper election, save the Georgia runoffs, to have, the first national election to have happened since, since we started this show. By national, I mean it's happening nationally. I don't mean, we're not voting on a national thing, though they are in Scotland. I mean, it's happening right across the UK. So it'll be the first big election in Britain or the US, save the Georgia runoffs. Since this show launched, we will cover it. I'm sure we'll launch all sorts of new ways of covering elections, which will be very exciting, and we'll give you all the latest. We'll give you analysis. We'll give you predictions. We'll keep you up to date with the latest polling data, and we will see exactly what areas flip where and just how bad the incoming annihilation for the Liberal Democrats is. If the Greens can make any inroads, if Nigel Farage or Lawrence Fox or one of these reactionary clowns can gain some sort of electoral foothold, or all of the rest of it. It is on the way. Something to look forward to in the summer, hopefully. That's bleak, isn't it? If it doesn't happen, it'll be something to cry about in the summer, hopefully. It'd just be something to talk about, to be honest. I think we're all so fed up of lockdown. We'd quite like the ability to just place a vote, have something to talk about. Stay up all night, eat some mince pies in the middle of summer, and watch the election returns come in. I also think be good, nice opportunity to sort of send a middle finger to the Tories, right? Get a vote against the Tories, vote for whoever will unseat the Tories. Just give them a bit of an electoral hemorrhaging come the election, and then they'll get scared. Be good. Be very good. Less of a vote of confidence in Starmer's Labour, more of a vote of no confidence in the current makeup of the British government. So we can hope those elections go ahead. Looks like they will at some point. Don't count on it being May. Also, don't count on it happening at all, because this government doesn't have a very good track record of saying something's going to happen and then delivering on that thing actually happening. They tend to... What was the last one? We had Sunday, where... yes, it was actually last Sunday, so a week tomorrow. They went on the news, they went on Andrew Marr, they were like, no, the schools are staying open, it's all good. Next day, national lockdown, schools all shut. Absolutely ridiculous. There's talk of a reshuffle still going around, but apparently the reshuffle is now being postponed towards July. The budget isn't happening. The budget will sort of be happening in March, but it'll actually just be another emergency economic statement. Everything's on hold again. No idea how we'll be campaigning in the local elections, but we'll see. And we'll, of course, see how Johnson and Starmer's campaigns set up for the election ahead. Okay, this has been MesmePolitics, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a leftist perspective. I have been Toby Lepati-Mesme, your host for the last half hour, and I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. We will, of course, be back at 7 o'clock, same time, same place, tomorrow. I hope you're doing alright. I hope your weekend is going well for you. Although you're probably not getting out much. But I hope you're having a lovely time. Checking in with yourself, checking in with your loved ones. It is a rough time, but we've got this. Get in touch in the chat at any point during these shows, and if you want to contact me any other time, please email me with any suggestions for the show, TobyJoshua2004 at gmail.com, or if you want to follow me on Twitter, at TobyJoshuaUK for my daily hot takes, or indeed, if you want to read my twice daily articles, get me on Medium, TobyJoshuaPolitics.medium.com. And the little description by it says, insightful and innovative UK journalism and commentary. I don't know if I can promise you all that. That's what the label says, so get involved. And we'll be with you tomorrow. So please tell a friend, because we want to grow. We want to make this show grow, this channel grow. Tell a friend. Get them involved. Politically educate them. It's like a soft introduction to communism, if you like. And yes, subscribe with notifications on so you never miss an episode. That's been Saturday. I'll see you for Sunday tomorrow. See ya. And rest in peace to the most famous political Twitter account of all time. Good riddance.